Today we're talking about snares, and well, here on YouTube, everybody says, just pick a good sample. But like, bro, like, what does that even mean? Like, what is a good sample? And what is a bad one? Like, how can I tell the difference from something that is useful and something that is complete garbage and I should not use? Like, what the hell is the difference? Today we're fixing this because we are cooking the perfect snare, okay? We have the perfect snare recipe. We will talk about attack, decay, single snares, double snares, frequency bands, and so on, okay? So we are looking at objective parameters to understand whether a sample is good or not. Now trust me, after this video, you will never have weak snares again. I promise you, okay? I have a master's degree in music and acoustic engineering, so I know what I'm talking about. And this is the start of a new series in which I help you nail down the sound of every single instrument in the mix. And today we're talking about snares, okay? Let's get to the point. Okay, so how the hell do I choose a snare? And that's a big question, okay? And in my opinion, the answers are three, okay? The first one is you just select a ready-to-use snare. So you just download a snare sample that is already been processed, already perfect, and you just put it into your track like it is, and you do nothing, okay? And that would be wonderful, but it happens like 1% of the time, and you would need like 1 hour research on just snare samples in order to get it. So this is a cool solution, but it's pretty rare that you get to do this, and generally you have a snare that is already present in like 1,000 of other tracks, so you generally don't want to do this all the time. Method number 2, you just select a single snare, which isn't perfect this time, okay? You just go through a bunch of snares and you download one sample, like one snare, and you use that. And then you process it, okay? And this is a possible solution, okay? Third point is you use a double snare, okay? So you go there, you download 2 snare samples, and you play them simultaneously, okay? So at the same time. This is another solution, okay? So if you're completely new to music production, just go with option 1, because you don't have to mess around with any audio effects, okay? So for example, I have downloaded this snare that is perfect, ready to use for your track, okay? But that's very rare, and generally you have to pay for these samples because they have already been curated a lot. If you're an intermediate or an advanced music producer, instead you should probably go for option 2 or option 3, because you can personalize your snare and make them perfect. And today we are doing so, okay? So, the perfect snare recipe, okay? I believe that to make the perfect snare, you need 4 things. First one, the duration, okay? How long does the snare last? That's very important. Second one, the attack, okay? That's the transient at the beginning, how much it punches, basically. Third one, the decay. So, how much the sound falls off over time. Fourth, the pitch of the snare, okay? The pitch of the sample. And that's very important too, because we want to select a proper pitch, okay? These are the 4 things that you must keep in mind when selecting a sample. So, let's go over the single snare technique, because we saw that technique number 1 is basically just taking a snare that is already perfect, okay? First thing to account, we said, is the duration. How must the duration be if we only use one snare, okay? Only one snare. The duration should be long enough. What do I mean? Well, there are some snare samples out there that are very, very short, okay? We shouldn't choose them unless we use the reverb to extend them, okay? So we want a duration that is generally long enough to be present in the mix. We don't want anything too dry, and we don't want anything too long either, okay? We want something that is tight enough. If a sample is too long, we can just cut it and fade the last part a little bit, okay? So the duration is average, okay? Second thing, the attack, okay? So we want a strong attack because we are talking about snares, okay? We are talking about something that plays on the 2 and on the 4. So we want this to be present and we want this to be punchy. So in the first milliseconds, we want something that goes up a lot, okay? And then decays slowly, okay? In fact, the third point is the decay. We want a moderate decay. So we want something that lasts a little bit and decays slightly over time, so that you hear a big punch at the beginning and something that trails off over the end. Last thing, the frequency range, okay? A snare should be present in all the frequency ranges, okay? It should be like present from 100 Hz to like, I don't know, 20 kilohertz or 16 kilohertz, something like that, okay? Now, very important thing, the best frequencies for this snare are 200 Hz and 7 kilohertz, okay? So these are the two frequencies that you want to boost, okay? And in the middle, you can turn down the gain just a little bit, okay? So in general, the frequency range should be broad, but the snare should have two frequencies which are slightly higher, so 200 Hz and 7 kilohertz. Let's see all of this in Ableton, okay? So this is an example of a lo-fi snare. Listen to this. Now, firstly, the duration, okay? So in lo-fi, like in trap and maybe also pop, you generally have some snares that are shorter. Where for other genres that are more massive, you want to have snares which last longer, okay? So this is good because in lo-fi we have a short snare, so this fits it. But I believe it's still a bit short, okay? So what we can do is take a reverb, place it down here, and tweak the parameters a little bit. So this is the end result. That's just a little bit better, and that's because we have a slightly longer duration, okay? So the duration has been done. Okay, next is the attack. And I believe we have a decent attack here, okay? If you see this, this is pretty high, this is pretty punchy with respect to the other part of this sample, okay? Then we have the decay, okay? And you can see that the sound trails off in this manner, okay? Like an exponential, okay? And that's pretty good. We want our snares to be like this, okay? So also the decay is good. And then we have the frequency. So in order to see the frequency, we can just go here and put an EQ. And let's go and see this. Now, that's not bad. Like I told you, the best frequencies for this snare are 7K and 200 Hz. So what we can do is boost these frequencies a little bit, and we get something like this. Now consider that this snare is peculiar because it's made for lo-fi, so it sounds differently and it should behave differently. But in general, you will find these two frequencies that are predominant, okay? So this was a pretty weird snare actually. So we can see this better on this sample, which is more standard for a snare. And you can see that it has a peak around 165 Hz. And then here it's pretty flat. So what we can do is just boost a little bit these frequencies, okay? And then do the same here maybe. Yeah, now it sounds punchy. Now this is the body, okay? You can hear it. And this is the high end. And you want to emphasize also these higher frequencies because they make these snares sound so much better. Okay, and that's about it for single snares. And you may believe it's enough, but let's put it like this, okay? Single snares are like, okay, they're good enough, okay? They do their job, okay? They behave perfectly in simpler songs, which do not require many instruments. But if you want something nice, something good, and you have more than 5 tracks in your DAW, then you should really consider this technique, okay? This is the snare layering, okay? We are using a layering and we have 2 snares playing at the same time. How does it work? Basically, we have a body snare and a top snare, which are playing on top of each other. And all together, they make a new snare, which we call double snare. Now remember, the body snare is in blue and the top snare is in orange, because we are going to craft this, okay? How do we make a body snare? Now, this is the foundation of our double snare, okay? This is the majority of the sound. Okay, firstly, the duration. Now, we want a duration that is as long as we want the double snare to be. So if we want a double snare of 200 milliseconds, the duration of the body should be 200 milliseconds. It is not necessary for the body to have a strong attack, okay? So it can be weak and it can be strong, okay? It's not a problem. We are not looking at the attack in this snare. Next, the decay. It should be slow. Now, that's important. We need a slow decay because this, like I told you, is the foundation. So it should last long and be hearable even after some milliseconds, okay? Next up, we have frequencies. It should be lower than the top snare in general, but it's not so important. So in general, you want it to be just a little bit lower with respect to the top snare, okay? But it's not so important, really. The important things here are the decay and the duration, okay? This must take a lot of the space of the sound. Next up, we have the top snare. So this is a snare that we play on top of the body snare to give some character to the sound. The duration should be short. We do not want a long duration, because if we have two samples with long duration playing on top of each other, well, that's gonna create a lot of mess, a lot of confusion, and a lot of problems for mono speakers, okay? So we want to have just a transient at the beginning. Next up, the attack. Coherently with the duration, the attack should be strong. So, like I told you, we want a transient. Next up, the decay. So also this should be very, very high, okay? And then finally we have the frequency range, and generally you want to have a frequency that is just a little bit higher with respect to the body, so that you can really hear the tonal character of the top snare, okay? The top snare is what gives you the character and the sound. The body is what gives you the power. Now, I want you to really understand this. So I have created this example in Ableton because I believe that this technique is the most powerful technique you can use for these snares, okay? So it's very important. I use this all the time, okay? So I have selected these two samples, and well, the first one is the body snare and the second one is the top snare. So this is pretty clear, okay? The body snare, like you can see, lasts longer. It has a lower decay because it lasts longer. The attack doesn't really matter here, but you can see that there isn't a high peak at the beginning and then a big tail, okay? It's just like the sound is clipped at this high and then it trails off slowly, okay? So there isn't a big transient at the beginning because we use this top snare to make this transient. If we see things like this way, you can really see that this is a shorter sample and it makes the top snare. Now, let me allow you to hear this, okay? This is the body snare and this is the top snare. And together they make this sound. Now, one thing, here the body snare has a pitch which is higher than the top snare. Listen to this. This is high and this is low. That's peculiar, but that's not a huge deal. The important thing is that they have two different sounds and two different tonal characters, okay? So they sound differently, okay? In the mix, with the kicks and the hi-hats, it sounds like this. And you can hear this, okay? Let me tell this. I believe this is a good snare, okay? I believe I've made a good snare. Okay, now you know how to make double snares, but watch out. There could be some problems. Don't mess this up, okay? First thing, check out the time alignment of the two snares. You want them to play nearly at the same time. Second thing, adjust the levels. You have to have the two snares combine perfectly into each other, okay? The intensity of the two sounds that you have selected should be on the same page, okay? You want them to be at the same level of dBs, nearly. Thirdly, shift pitch. if you find that the two sounds do not merge perfectly because they have tonal characteristics which are different, you can pitch shift one of them or also both of them in order for them to mix better, okay? And lastly, the most overlooked thing, but it is also the most important probably, check out the mono compatibility, okay? You want the snare to sound good also on mono speaker. Now you should be able to select the perfect snare and also to layer it. But we can improve this by another 50% just by making some audio processing, okay? And I want to make a video on this. So if you're interested and maybe you want to level up your sound even more, maybe, just maybe, subscribe to the channel. Just maybe, okay? Yeah, that's about it for this video, and thank you, and see you in the next one.